Ben Shapiro made a point for like, I don't know, the billionth time that made absolutely no sense. And it was in regard to the Democratic debate that happened recently in Ohio. Now, during the debate, there was some talk about reproductive rights. And Kamala Harris made a point about how women's bodies are regulated in a way that men's bodies don't get regulated. And Shapiro disagreed. So let's hear his argument.
And then her comment that there's not a single law that tells a man what to do with his body. Try virtually every law that applies to human beings, right? I'm not allowed to use my body to smack my employees. I'm not allowed to use my body to sell drugs. There are lots of different things you're not allowed to do with your body. The only thing that is different between men and women when it comes to this is that men don't have another human being inside their body unless they're Jeffrey Dahmer. That's not something that you're supposed to have inside. If you're a woman, you have another human being in there. My wife is pregnant. There's a human in there, a human. Okay, and if she decides to harm that human, she is not just doing something with her body, she's doing something with that human's body, as all of us know.
I think that sperm, those are humans. I think that sperm, even if it's not a fertilized egg, right? Sperm has the potential to fertilize an egg and become a human.
That's true.
It's a living thing.
That's a fact, that's a scientific fact.
It is a scientific fact. So I believe that we need to monitor Ben Shapiro every single night, every single day, and make sure that he doesn't spill his seed anywhere other than his wife, because that would be, that would be wrong. By the way, does he really think people are that stupid? And I guess some portion of people who like him are, because obviously we're having a discussion about reproductive rights, right? So either he's stupid, but I don't think he is. He's just making a stupid, disingenuous argument that has nothing to do with the topic at hand, which is, again, reproductive rights. So if we're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, then we would have a discussion about how men's reproductive health and reproductive rights are not regulated the way that women have to deal with it.
Yeah, now, to be fair to Ben Shapiro on a couple of fronts here, number one, he probably does want to regulate men's bodies as well, because remember, he's very anti-porn.
Oh, that's a good point.
So he might actually be against onanism.
But what about those wet dreams, Cenk?
Okay,
criminal activity is happening in the beds of Americans every night.
Okay, so let us note the irony of people like Ben Shapiro saying they're against big government, but saying, I'm gonna tell you everything that you're gonna do, that you're allowed to do with your body. Okay, you're not allowed to watch porn, get your eyes out, get your eyes out, the government doesn't want you to watch, don't watch it. Move your eyes, divert your eyes, okay? And then got whatever else you do there, you're not allowed to do that either, okay? And women, your control of your own body, no way, you're chattel, I got you. This is, and I tell you what to do with your body. Okay, look, even if you agree with those policies, first of all, anyway, on the porn stuff, good luck trying to find anyone who actually agrees with you. But you can't argue that it's for small government, you just can't. So when they say they're against big government, what they're saying is, I'm against taxes on my rich benefactors.
That's exactly right. The same benefactors that help fund him.
Yes, and they want to totally fund Ben Shapiro. That's also well known. And so all the arguments are in service of, all this is distraction. It's culture wars. It's to get religious zealots to be like, oh, like the guys who are on my side and believe that the zygotes are like humans, etc. They also want tax cuts for the rich. So I guess, yeah, all right, I vote yes on tax cuts for the rich. And they go, cha-ching, okay. And now look, Ben might be enough of a zealot to actually believe this nonsense. But to Anna's point about the seed, I know it's an uncomfortable conversation, and nor do I recommend that job opening for anyone monitoring Ben.
Yeah, and by the way, like, you know what's an uncomfortable discussion? Hearing about like his thoughts on any woman's uterus and what goes on there, right? Like, that's gross.
Yeah, and so look, the laws that they're passing are gross. They're so gross, it's feels uncomfortable to talk about. But what's much worse is that they actually do those things in real life to women. So let me give you an example. But I'll come back to it in the context that I began with. So you can say, well, that's absurd to say that the seed inside of a man's body is the beginning of life. Well, you could say it's potential life. Well, you could also say a zygote that has, so the sperm has met the egg and now you have a zygote. You say, well, that's obviously life if you're in the anti-choice category, anti-abortion, etc. Well, why is that obvious? That's also a potential life, just like semen is. It's not a life yet. If you took it out, it's not viable. If you take out the semen by itself, it's not viable. If you take out the egg by itself, it's not viable. If you take out the zygote, it's also not viable.
It's not viable, but like even assuming that you have a so-called healthy zygote that you take out of the womb, do you know how many fertilized eggs, how many pregnancies end in miscarriage, right? So it's just, so do we criminalize women when that happens, right?
Like well, some of the laws are written so poorly that, or maybe on purpose, that would be the effect of some of the Republican laws that are being considered in some of the red states, where they say, well, look, I don't know if it was a miscarriage or an abortion. It's your responsibility to prove that it was a miscarriage. And so a lot of women who have miscarriages, if those laws were to pass and the courts were to hold them up, we'd have a massive issue because there's a ton of miscarriages and they would start locking people up. And it's not like this is a thing that didn't happen. Abortion used to be illegal, and they did lock women up and they locked doctors up for making that decision between themselves. So now instead, the gross part is some of the laws say that the woman is forced to do a transvaginal ultrasound. That means you penetrate the woman and see what's to do that procedure. Now it's super uncomfortable to talk about, but that is what the law dictates in some of those Republican proposals in those red states. So, and even in some of the most extreme cases, even in cases of incest and rape. So the state is going to tell them, small government advocates say, after a woman has been raped, you should penetrate her again. The government should, and to see what's inside of her so we can force her to not make her own decision, but we make the decision for her about her body, her life, and even if you want to be the most generous you can to the anti-choice side, and the potential life inside of her. Now, everyone agrees, by the way, they'll lie to you and they mislead you all the time. Once the baby is viable, it is an independent life form. And all liberals, progressives, pro-choice people agree that once it's an independent life form, it has rights. And you can't have an abortion at that point, right? And so that is the law of the land. That's also part of Roe versus Wade. So they make it seem like that's not the case. It is. Until it becomes an independent life form, it is potential life, just like a semen and just like egg is. And then at that point, it is optional on us. Do we want to impose ancient moralities upon others that are not you? That is exactly what big government does. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care what you want to do with your body. I don't care what your moral guidance is. I'm going to impose my so-called moral guidance upon you. That is the definition of big government, and that's exactly what Ben Shapiro is in favor of. But again, to be fair to Ben Shapiro, he is listening to critiques, so maybe he'll listen to this and become pro-choice. Because if you've noticed, we've been doing some videos and others have pointed out now that he had the furrowed eyebrow and he would always look down.
He just look down at his laptop the entire time.
And now all of a sudden, after the critiques, he's starting to look up a little bit. It's the first step. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying.
Look, there's nothing he can do that's gonna make me think that his show or he is visually appealing to watch. But he could maybe educate himself on these issues and stop pretending like he's the authority and some whiz kid on these topics, especially when he's trying to like pull a fast one on people by comparing reproductive rights to something completely different. That nonsense argument about like, and I love how the first thing that came to mind for him was, I can't use my body to physically assault or physically harm my coworkers, my colleagues. Why is it the first thing that came to mind, Ben?
Well.
Weirdo, anyway.
Well, the first thing that came to mind when he thought about Beto O'Rourke was grabbing his gun and going to the door. So
that's a good point.
It's not overly surprising that the right wing would also think about assault first. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.